What if one of the most powerful anti-inflammatory tools you could use was already sitting in your kitchen and most people are using it completely music wrong? For 7 days, I took 3 TBSP of high-quality olive oil a day with meals. By day 3, something shifted. Here's exactly what happened and the science behind it. Most people treat olive oil as a salad topping or cooking fat used occasionally in small amounts, but high polyphenol extra virgin olive oil behaves more like a functional food than a simple condiment. The key compound is called Oleocanthal. It's a polyphenol discovered by researchers at the Monell Chemical Senses Center, published in Nature in 2005. Oleocanthal inhibits the same COX-1 and COX-2 enzymes that ibuprofen acts on, a genuine, well-documented anti-inflammatory mechanism. It makes that peppery sting or that bite at the back of your throat from a high-quality olive oil. That's the oleocanthal, the same throat sensation researchers recognized from liquid ibuprofen, which is what led to the discovery. Here's an important distinction. This anti-inflammatory action comes without the gut lining and other risks associated with regular non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug use, but it's a food-level effect, not a drug-level dose. So let's talk about what the research actually shows. The PREDIMED trial, one of the largest Mediterranean diet trials ever run, almost 7,500 participants in Spain, it compared a Mediterranean diet plus extra virgin olive oil, the same diet plus nuts, and a low-fat control. So, 3 groups. The first one had a Mediterranean diet with extra virgin olive oil. The second one had had the same diet, Mediterranean diet, but had nuts instead of the extra virgin olive oil. And the third one was a low-fat control. Now, despite being higher in fat, the olive oil group, they didn't gain weight or waist size compared to the low-fat group, and they showed slightly more favorable body weight changes over 5 years. This challenges the assumption that eating more fat makes you gain fat, but it's about favorable comparison to a low-fat diet over years, not dramatic fat loss. Now, the original 2018 publication was retracted and republished with corrected statistics. In the corrected analysis, the olive oil group's body weight benefit remained, while the waist circumference benefit was more pronounced in the nuts group. So that's worth being precise about. A separate large study found people who regularly consumed extra virgin olive oil, like taking it most days of the week, tended to have smaller waist circumferences than irregular users. But this is a correlation, so it's associated with it, but not proof that olive oil alone caused a difference. Now let's talk about blood sugar. We know that research shows that adding extra virgin olive oil to a meal can meaningfully reduce the post-meal blood sugar spike that supports steadier energy and fewer cravings. Also, inflammation. A 2-month study in people with metabolic syndrome found using a high oleocanthal olive oil, so high polyphenol olive oil, they found reductions in inflammatory markers, things like interleukin-6, TNF-alpha, alongside improvements in waist measurement and fatty liver markers. So, let's talk about how the mechanism works. We know that number 1 is satiety. We know that when we consume fat, it's going to help trigger satiety hormones like cholecystokinin, CCK, peptide Y, and others. Part of the same appetite signaling system involved in GLP-1 pathways. This is why appetite tends to naturally turn down, and this is why many people use things like high polyphenol extra virgin olive oil instead of using GLPs like Ozempic and Wegovy. It also has a great blood sugar stabilizing effect. We know that taking high polyphenol extra virgin olive oil will slow the gastric emptying and blunt glucose spikes. We know that olive oil helps reduce the blood sugar crash and craving cycle that drives so much hunger and overeating for so many different individuals. And then, of course, it impacts inflammation and water retention. And as inflammation lowers, we know water retention that accompanies it, it tends to decrease, and that can account for some early rapid scale changes. This is reduced inflammation and water, not just pure fat loss, and also on top of that, olive oil can activate thermogenesis. There is research that suggests olive oil may modestly increase the energy burned during digestion compared to other fats. A small but real effect. So more caloric burn obviously can help result in weight loss. And here's a realistic expectation. These are powerful mechanisms working together. Appetite signaling, blunting the insulin response, so good stable insulin, lowering the inflammatory load, but it's not a magic fat melting effect. Let's talk about a realistic 7-day figure. Days 1 and 2, that's the adjustment period. Consuming 30 or more grams of added fat, that's what you get in a tablespoon of olive oil. That can be a stressor on the body. The gallbladder releases bile, the liver recycles it, and the gut microbiome adapts. Some people feel a little heavy or bloated in the first 48 hours. That's a normal adaptation period. Day 3 is the turn. For many, this is when the adjustment passes and the benefits start. They have steadier morning energy, reduced hunger, and noticeably fewer cravings as blood sugar stabilizes. And then day 4 and 5, that's when we have the appetite shift. Normal portion sizes start to feel like too much food. Eating slows naturally without conscious restriction. Some notice less joint stiffness as the anti-inflammatory effect builds. And then day 6 and 7, that's when you get a steady state. You get great energy after meals, and that stays stable, including after higher carb meals. The afternoon slump tends to fade. Sleep quality may improve, plausibly linked to lower inflammation and cortisol, though this is less firmly established by a direct study. But that's what our hypothesis is, and the typical realistic result over a week is a few pounds down. A meaningful portion of that is reduced inflammation and water, like we talked about earlier, so it's not all fat, but some of it is fat. You have reduced appetite, steadier energy, and less joint stiffness. Now, let's talk about how to do it right. We know that spacing is everything. Split the daily amount across the day with your meals. While some influencers tell you to take it away from meals, I find this doesn't work as well. I always recommend using it with meals because you'll already have the key enzymes and bile being processed that you need to metabolize the olive oil and get the benefits. But instead of just stacking the olive oil onto a large meal, use it as a replacement for something in the meal. Use less fat in other places, like less butter or less avocado as an example. You can also use it in replacement of starches, so take out breads, potatoes, and put the olive oil in. That's typically a good idea. Less starch in many cases is better for your health. You'll ultimately do this naturally. Taking a tablespoon of olive oil will slow gastric emptying, which means you're going to get full faster and feel satiated. So this means you're going to eat less and have less cravings after your meal. Now, a gentler on-ramp instead of jumping to 3 tablespoons is to start with 1 tablespoon with your first meal, then 1 tablespoon with 2 meals the next week, then build to 3 tablespoons. You can do 1 tablespoon with 3 meals, or if you only eat 2 meals a day like I often do 1 and 1 2 tablespoons with each of those 2 meals. Now, the single most important factor is the quality of the oil. A well-known UC Davis analysis found many supermarket extra virgin olive oils, they failed to meet extra virgin standards. Some were diluted, oxidized, or rancid. Now, this study said 80% were diluted, and they were diluted with seed oils like corn oil, soybean oil, canola oil, safflower oil. 80% diluted. Now, the FDA has pushed back on the exact figures, and a more recent testing suggests lower fraud rates. So the truth is likely somewhere in between, but the core caution stands. So if we're using a $10 bottle of olive oil, it's most likely a diluted brand, and it certainly isn't going to have much of the beneficial polyphenols like oleocanthal that are needed to bring down inflammation in the body. Because you see these polyphenols, including oleocanthal and other ones like hydroxytyrosol, they degrade after harvest, and they degrade even faster when they're exposed to light and heat. So if the olive oil is in a clear bottle and it's sitting out for months, or in some cases some of these bottles are out for years, they're going to have lost a large percentage of the polyphenols. Additionally, polyphenols are high in unripe olives. Those are the green olives. The polyphenols protect the olive from heat, light, and bugs that want to eat them. As the olive ripens, it becomes black, and it loses a lot of the polyphenols, and it increases its fat content. So black olives are higher in fat. Now, that's good monounsaturated oleic acids, healthy fat, but they are low in polyphenols. Most olive oil producers use black olives, and it makes sense because they can get a lot more oil from them. It makes financial sense. Get more oil per olive, and you need less olives to produce a liter of olive oil. So most olive oils already start with a lower polyphenol count because they're using the fully ripened olives that have lower polyphenol count. Then you add in the time from the press, the exposure to light and heat, and you can see that most olive oils on the market, they're quite low in polyphenols, and they're just not going to have the anti-inflammatory impact. The simple at-home test, a real high polyphenol olive oil that has a lot of oleocanthal, should sting the back of your throat. It's going to taste peppery, and it may even make you cough. If it goes down completely smooth, it's likely low in the polyphenols responsible for the benefits. Now, without the right oil, fresh high polyphenol, properly stored, even a perfect protocol is not going to deliver these results. So my recommended olive oil is fresh pressed olive oil. It's the most flavorful artisan olive oil I've ever found. It comes from award-winning artisan farms with harvest fresh taste delivered to your table. It's independently lab certified to be 100% extra virgin olive oil, so you can trust the quality. My family swears by it. We use it daily on salads and meals, and the kids love it, and I'm sure your family will too. And they have a special offer. You can get a $49 bottle of fresh pressed olive oil for just $1, and that helps with shipping. So check out the link in the description box below for that. Now, some other good brands include things like Keurig, Prunetti, Frantoy, Bighorn is a good one, and Zahara. But do your research and get the highest quality brand you can find. Remember not to think about it as just normal olive oil, but instead as a natural medicine with powerful health benefits. So I used the fresh pressed olive oil when I did my 21-day or my 21 TBSP journey. It is the best. That's what I recommend. It's my highest recommendation, but again, there are a lot of other good ones out there, so do your research. Now let's get into your questions. What if I struggle to digest high amounts of fat? Can I still do this? And the answer is yes, but it has to be nuanced. If you feel sluggish and bloated with higher amounts of fat, I'm going to start small. Half a teaspoon with each meal and eat lower fat foods. You can get 90, 10 or 95/5 grass-fed and finished beef, so it's lower in fat. You can also do wild-caught seafood, chicken, so lower fat protein sources. You want to start with that. Don't add in extra fat other than, half a teaspoon of olive oil that you take with it. And if you feel good with a half a teaspoon, bump it up to 1 TSP with meals and see how you feel. And you can find a good comfort spot from there. Additionally, taking digestive enzymes and bile salts like taurine, choline and ox bile, as well as TUDCA, all those can help with fat digestion. Now, next question. I've had a bad reaction to olive oil in the past. Should I still try this? And the answer is nuanced again, because the key is to understand if it was truly the olive oil or if the olive oil was contaminated. So get a high quality fresh pressed olive oil and start with a small dosage, like a half a teaspoon, and then see how you feel. If you don't feel well, then don't do this protocol. You can also try something like MCT oil, which doesn't have the polyphenols, so it doesn't reduce inflammation as well, but it does elevate ketones in your bloodstream, and it can be really, really helpful for satiety, for fat loss, for brain health. So MCT oil would be something else that you could try if you can't do the olive oil. Now, last question. If I follow this protocol, can it replace other supplements I'm taking? The answer is yes. In many cases it can. I always say olive oil is a natural medicine, right? It's a powerful supplement, and so it can definitely replace supplements, particularly ones that are used to lower inflammation. Things like turmeric, systemic enzymes, boswellia, N-acetylcysteine. It can replace some of those. And in many cases, as your inflammation comes down, you won't need these supplements. You can still take them if you like. I do. But it's great to be in a place where supplements are more optional than necessary because you're already in a very healthy physiological state. So try this olive oil protocol and let us know what you experience. 7 days isn't long, but it's enough to feel the difference the right olive oil can make. Steadier energy, fewer cravings, less stiffness, and a body that's a little less inflamed than when you started. The key is doing it with a genuinely high polyphenol fresh pressed olive oil. Get that part wrong and none of it works. If this gave you a new way to think about olive oil, share it with someone who needs it. Hit subscribe and let me know in the comments. Are you going to try this 7-day challenge? You can also check out the fresh pressed olive oil. There's a link in the show notes. And if you want my 7-day fat burning quick start guide, I'll have that in the show notes as well. So check out the description box and you'll get all those goodies, and of course, be blessed. We'll see you in a future video.